and succeed.
I was an archeologist, and I wanted an office job because archeology it all happens in slow motion. I wanted an office job where I could think like an archeologist, and I decided to go into advertising because I figured that the way an advertising person thinks and the way an archeologist thinks are very, very similar. We're looking at the evidence of behavior, and we construct a theory. And in archeology, you have a theory, you publish it, and if archeologists say good, then it's good. And in advertising, you have a theory and you make a campaign, and if people buy the product, your theory's right. So I talked my way into a big agency, Saatchi and Saatchi, on the basis of my experience as an archeologist. And they understood completely what the similarity in the thinking was, and that was it. I thought I was an expert because I worked for one of the world's most famous advertising agencies. I knew nothing. And it was only when I went to the theatre and we were watching this beautiful play, an Irish play called Stones in His Pockets. 2 guys on stage, that's it. And I looked around me and I realized there were 1,000 people crying because of what these 2 guys on stage were doing. And I thought, well, if we want to know how to change people emotionally, then the theatre is the place to look. These people have secrets that we need to know. They've known for thousands of years how to do what we think we know how to do. So I went to study theatre. Something that I learnt from theatre that I brought into advertising, not just in terms of writing scripts, also in terms of understanding what we're trying to do to the consumer. What often happens in an advertising campaign is that the creative team who are writing it, their objective, even if they're not aware of it, their objective is to prove to the audience how clever they are. So they want to write clever dialogue, they want to write funny lines. Very often you get in the last moment of a TV commercial, someone throws a really clever insult. If you cut to the guy who received the insult, the victim of the insult, and you see him reacting badly to the insult, that's amazingly satisfying for the audience. It makes the story, because that's what we buy tickets to see in the theatre. We don't buy tickets to see funny lines. We can read funny lines in a book. We buy tickets to see people in states of emotional change in their relationships with each other. We're trying to change the consumer, and nobody likes to be changed by others. So I learned tricks for kind of going under the radar to change the consumer. The thing about old media is, in order to do it, it doesn't matter how familiar a story format is, or a TV format or a radio format. In order to do something compelling and interesting, you have to combine things that were not combined previously. Because you can't tell the same story again. And if you do, you have to bring in new elements that make it worth watching instead of the original one, which means you have to be creative, okay? And that's about being exploratory. I have to explore lots of possibilities and not block myself, not hold myself back. Now that's old media. New media also requires extreme creativity in the form of exploration.
Shoot this bear, come on! I can't! Just shoot it! Hey! I don't want to shoot this bear!
It doesn't necessarily require story structure. It doesn't necessarily require any of the content that we had in old media, although it often does.
Help me to rewrite this story. Type anything you want with your keyboard.
The important thing with new media is because the medium itself, the method of contacting the individual itself, and the things that you can do within that contact are so unknown. We're really at the, it's a new world order that we're about to enter into. It means it's the people who are doing it are the explorers, and explorers are brave. They go into the unknown, they don't know what's there. There might be monsters there, they don't know. And in the business world, there are a lot of monsters in the unknown. The most important thing is for people to say yes to their own imagination and to be patient before saying no or before saying yes but. We're all taught at school that the way to succeed in life, win the competition for status, is to say yes but and to kill other people's ideas. It's a way of staying safe and stopping anything happening. If there's 90% of your own idea that you don't like, forget about it. Focus on the 10% that you do and keep pushing it. I'll tell you what, when I was learning to ski, I kept hitting the trees. I was an expert, smashing into trees. My instructor said to me, "Why are you hitting the trees?" And I said, "You tell me, you're the teacher." And she said, "Where's your attention?" And I said, "On the trees." And she said, "Why?" And I said, "So I can see them." And she said, "Why?" And I said, "So I can avoid them." And she said, "How's that working out for you?" I was like, "Not very well." So she said, "Why don't you focus on the gaps between the trees?" And I never hit another tree again. And I think it's quite disgusting that I went to a very expensive school and a very famous university, but it took a Swiss peasant in a fancy ski outfit to teach me how to think. Forget everything you learned at school. Go to kindergarten Not as a teacher, as a pupil. I'm serious. Spend a day in a kindergarten and see the world through the child's eyes. That will help you reconnect with the child that you were before your teachers got hold of you. I might sound very anti-teaching. I kind of am. Do you have kids? You do? Oh wow, don't ever let them go anywhere near a school, for God's sake, because when they go to school and they come home with their homework, it's going to be marked in red ink. It's the colour of blood. And when a kid makes a mistake in nature, they pay with blood. So teachers make scratch marks all over their work and show them where they went wrong. This is sick. They should write in green ink and show them where they went right. I don't know why they don't do it. And when your kids do go to school, please, please, please do that to their homework. After the teacher's written blood all over your kid's homework, you write with green ink and show him where he went right, and you'll educate geniuses.
If I could have the whole world, where in the world would you recommend me to go and play?
Israel.
Why?
It's the home of the world's biggest idea. The original big idea, one God, which broke the Babylonian hallucination. The Babylonians said their kings are gods, and the Jews said no, every king is a guy in tights. That was why they didn't like us very much. And Israel is the place where all the innovation, the explosion of creativity is happening around the world. Even better, go on holiday to what you consider to be the most creative places in the world, and you'll see very little creativity compared to what you've got right here in Tel Aviv and all over Israel. Outside of Israel, if you want to travel, I'd say go to Chicago. Chicago is the home of improvisational comedy. Not only is that the best fun you can have with your clothes on, it's also the single best way to activate your imagination if it's a little bit blocked and a bit limited. Because the skill of acting is to pretend that they don't know what's about to happen. The skill of the improviser is to pretend that you do know what's about to happen, and it's a much better skill for life.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This is hardcore Florentine. At a period that I played a lot, perform with a million bands. I think the thing I love to do the most is to sit right here and to do whatever I feel like on the computer. I really cruise around the internet a lot, searching for anything creative. Then I express myself through the internet. It's the evolution of music and technology.